Hi, this is Matt.
This is John.
And this is Dhruv, and this is week 5 of the Devil.
Yeah, so for this week, we thought we would talk about our audio, our voice acting. We just came back from last week's convention. Well, we came back, and last week's convention gave us a lot of ideas and suggestions. And one thing we realized we had to focus on is the voice actors. And we want to know. I generally always thought, what is more important in a story? Is it the voice actor, like the one who plays the character, or is it actually the voice actor's writing, or is it both? What do you think, Drew?
I think that I think both are very important, but I have seen games where the voice acting carries it. I think one example would be the newest Diablo, where the writing I think is pretty generic, but the voice of Deckard Cain is kind of more enchanting and gets me into the character even more. So definitely a good voice actor can carry the game, but if you have good writing, then that will just make the game stand out from everything else.
Right. I think Matt plays a lot of narrative game. What do you think, Matt?
Oh yeah, there's a game I want to mention, which is called Bastion. I think it's awesome. The writing is good and the voice acting is good, and they're also indie developers. So I think like writing and voice acting are both like really important. So especially if you have a good voice acting, it would also enhance the writing and the story and all the deliveries.
Wait, what if you have a limited amount of budget, let's say $1,000, and you can only choose to give it to voice act? So the job will be done. The writers will write for free. The audio recorder will do it for free. The voice actor will do it for free. And you have $1,000 money, and you can only give it to one. Who would you prioritize? I think that's probably a better question.
Okay. So you're making me to choose one then. So
Yeah.
I would probably say voice acting then, because like saying out loud the script and all that delivery, I think it really helps with all the presentation.
Man.
Yeah. I think I would agree with the voice acting being more important. But I can also see it depends on the game. So there's a game that we actually saw in the convention called Heartbound. It's similar to games like Undertale, where it's a JRPG type of game, where it's all about the text. It's just you read the text and the sound is created on reading the text. So there's no real voice acting for every single line, but there is an element of story, and it's very important. So the writing actually is more emphasized there. So I think that if you have a game that requires a narrative told through an audio experience, then obviously a voice actor I think would be much more important. But I think that if the game requires you to just sit down and read the text, then I think the writing would be more important, because somebody can just read the text without necessarily needing somebody to say it to them. They can just read it, and as long as it's good and entertaining, there are many other ways that can, I think, compensate for not having a voice actor.
Man, I feel so bad for writers. They get screwed here too. But I think personally, I would kind of agree. But my reasoning is more that we can't write but we can write. And then I think you generally pay based off of the rarity of your skill, right? We tried voice acting before and we kind of sucked. So we know that's something we cannot do. But we can write. Like if we in writing we can take some time to edit it. We can have multiple people look through it, and we will be able to come up with a somewhat decent script after like maybe a month of work. But we won't be able to voice act in a month and practice voice acting in a month to become very, very good. I think there's a lot of natural talent in voice acting. It's very immediate. And also the voices. Like, for example, right now we have two big submissions from voice actors. One is Bethan and one is from the Hermit Collective. And both of them are incredible. They're so good at voice acting. Like, from our standpoint, they're way better than all of us. But we have to choose one, right? And then Bethan has this amazing voice where the moment you hear it, you know it's her voice, and she delivers it in such a calm way. while the Hermit Collective have so much flexibility. They can do almost anything we would ask them to do. So it's kind of like internally we're all debating. So I want to ask both of you guys, like, if there's something you would tell Hermit Collective or Bethan, what would that be? Like, Matt, since you're the sound boss, what would you say?
I would probably say, like, well, since our game is kind of like a children's audiobook, I would want it to be like it's going to be like really calm and soothing. So also at the same time, it needs to carry the story and all the attention. Yeah, pretty much that.
Right. That's what you're focusing. What about you?
I would probably say that I agree with having a very soothing voice. I think the game child book story is I think is a good concept of how the voice should kind of sound, where as you're going through the game it's something that would kind of almost lull a child to sleep. But I think it also needs to there has to be some points of the game where it changes, because we do have points in the game where we're introducing players to more darker aspects of the story, and in those parts the narrator is a little bit more agitated. So in my opinion, I think the narrator should be kind of soothe most and lighthearted, I think, most of the time. But when they get into the more darker and deeper parts, they should be more kind of anxiety ridden a little bit.
Defensive?
Yeah, and defensive.
Yeah, I would agree with both of them. I think both Hermit Collective and Bethan have proved their skills. I think the problem is more that we have to really decide what we want. Because I think it is. I don't want to say it's all the audiobook do it, but a lot of the audiobook, when you're reading it to kids, you almost read in somewhat, I don't want to say condescending, but like but this is what's happening. Like the over dramatized reading style is, I think, very characteristic of like children's audiobook. So none of them are right or wrong. It's just which one do we like more. But yeah. I think that's generally we have to start wrapping it up, or else our poor editor is going to have a lot of work. But yeah, I think we're very excited we are so excited when we get to hear Bethan and Hermit Collective's performance. And we have a couple more that's going to be coming in. So if you guys have any interest in voice acting, or you guys know someone, always hit us up. We would love to hear it.
Yeah, and thank you guys for listening. Please subscribe and leave a comment below if you like what we're doing. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.